Okay, let me walk you through the setup of the lab in part one, and so I can kind of talk you through the calculations. The calculations that we did here for part one will be the exact same calculations you do for part two. So the first thing we did is I used just a plastic Tupperware container for the boat, and I measured the mass of that, and I measured the length, width, and height to find the volume. So for part two, you're going to build your own boat out of a sheet of paper or tin foil. And you'll need to do the same thing. You'll need to measure the mass of that as best you can. If you have a kitchen scale, that would be ideal, or know someone who has a kitchen scale. If not, you could probably look up on the internet how much does one sheet of paper weigh or one sheet of tin foil. If you need to estimate it, do the best you can. Then since mine was a rectangle, I just did length times width times height. So whatever shape you build your boat in, you'll want to estimate the volume as best you can. Figure out shapes that you can calculate easily enough: triangles, pyramids, squares, cubes, rectangles, that kind of stuff, and figure out the volume as best you can. The numbers need to be in meters, so make sure you're doing that. Okay, then you're going to basically have this. For things that float, the buoyant force equals the weight. So the buoyant force is going to be the mass of the displaced fluid, and the weight is going to be the mass of the boat plus the mass you're going to add. So here's the calculation. So I used these equations down here. I replaced the weight of the force of the boat, force of buoyancy, with what the buoyant force is, mass of the fluid times gravity. And same thing with the weight of the object, mass of the object times gravity. So then I replaced the mass of the fluid, which I don't know and cannot find, because it's not the total amount of fluid in the container, so you probably just have your boat float in the sink. It's not the total amount of water in the sink for you, it's the total amount of water your boat pushes out of the way. Well, I don't know what that is. So I used the density equation, density is mass over volume, multiplied volume over and solved for mass. So instead of writing mass, I wrote volume times density. This is both of the fluid. Okay, times G equals, and then I substitute for the mass of the object, the boat's mass plus the weight's mass, times G. I canceled the G's because they're on both sides, and then I plugged the numbers in. Here is my volume that I found up here for the boat, which is the same as the water. The fluid and the boat's volume are the same. Here's the density of water, which I gave you here. Here is the mass of the boat, which I measured up here, and then plus the mass of the weight. So multiplied those two together to get this, subtracted that to the other side, and that gives me this. So this is how much weight I calculated that my boat could hold. That's 918 grams. So then what I did is I tested it, and when I tested it, I found that it held 870 grams, so 0.87 kilograms. And then I used the percent error equation to figure it out. 0.18 minus 0.87 divided by 0.18 times 100, my percent error was 5.25. So for your part, you're going to do the exact same thing there. Use this example to help you, but you're going to do the exact same thing and figure out what your percent error is and how much it can hold. Again, you're going to have to estimate if you don't have a kitchen scale. You'll have to estimate how much the mass is. So for adding mass, I would find things that are of different weights that you could look up on the internet. Or better yet, like if you have like cans of like tomato sauce, they'll have how many ounces they are. You can convert ounces into grams or kilograms. So those are some things that you can do as far as estimating as best you can. Don't worry about what numbers you get. We had people who got 100% error because theirs didn't work at all. So just do the best you can with it. If you have questions, email me. You don't need to leave the conclusion. I'm going to let people do that when they come back. So anyway, if you have questions, send me a message. Otherwise, have a blessed break and enjoy your time off.